You're listening to DruidCast episode 161.
Look at our world now. Just look what we've done to her. Soon the colorful wired will be here no more. It's crazy to reason just how blind human greed can be. How could they sell out the future we need? The jewel in the sky, so precious to all of us. There's no place like home in this universe. The oceans are choking, the rainforest almost gone. How could you destroy what you didn't know? Put back what you've taken, all the treasures on loan you stole. So much destruction wherever you go. Look into the future, stare into their eyes a while, and you'll see so much sadness from Paradise, child. The jewel in the sky, so precious to all of us. There's no place like home in this universe. The oceans are choking, the rainforest almost gone. How could you destroy what you didn't know? We don't need another cross to bear. And don't push this aside if you really care. The jewel in the sky, so precious to all of us. There's no place like home in this universe. The oceans are choking, rainforest almost gone. How could you destroy what you didn't know? No place like home. No place like home. No place like home in this universe. No place like home. No place like home. No place like home in this universe. No place like home.
Hello everyone and welcome to DruidCast episode 161. I am your host Dave the Bard, and DruidCast is brought to you on or around the 20th of every month by the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. If you'd like to find out more about the Order and our courses, you can do that on our website, which is www.druidry.org. Opening the show, you heard the new single from one of the legends of Irish folk music, Finbar Fury, called Blue Jewel. A song whose lyrics, I reckon, speak for themselves, and Finbar sings on that single with his daughter, who is also an OBOB member, Anya Fury. They are releasing another single, and I hope to be able to play that song to you on a future show, but thank you so much for sending that in, Anya. It's always so lovely to hear your voice in song. It really is. The Talky bit this month is a recording of a talk about runes given by Linda Sever at a previous PaganCon conference in Preston, Lancashire. Now, a few things about the talk. The main speaker room at PaganCon was in the same room as the bar and the market stall area. So for the first part of the talk, there's quite a bit of background noise. Then it quietens down, but it then comes back towards the end of the talk when some of the other rooms open up and people return to the main hall from those other presentations. The other thing, a part of the talk was centred around a PowerPoint presentation, and obviously as this is a podcast, you won't be able to see the slides, but guess what? We couldn't see the slides either on the day because the sun was so bright. We all had to use our creative visualization, even in the room, and so will you on this podcast. But if you're into runes, it's a great talk, and I'm very happy Linda gave me permission to broadcast it on the show. So, without any further delay, here is Linda Sever on runes, magic, and divination.
The Talky bit.
The runes that you've got on a sheet of paper are known as the Elder Futhark. Anybody who works with runes know that there are different runic systems that have been found throughout the Germanic and Scandinavian worlds. But if people work with runes for magic or divination, it tends to be the Elder Futhark that they refer to. But there are different runic systems depending on what people prefer and what people can remember, because some of the runes have got fewer. Some of the rune sets have only got 16. That's easier to remember. So the runes, they're not just a system of magic. They're originally a system of writing, of alphabets, of marking gravestones, of marking thresholds, and of saying this thing belongs to me, this headstone belongs to me, this tombstone belongs to me. But gradually over the centuries, really, they were also incorporated into a lot of work to do with spell working, and in particular Norway, to do with curses. There's a whole book of being gathered documents on cursing with runes that were particularly common to Norway for some reason. So this is the Elder Futhark. I'll just go through some of the systems. The rune, the word itself is a bit clouded in mystery. It could mean mystery, it could mean secret, it could mean howl, it could mean cloud. They found origins in the Finnish, links to Scandinavian, links to Germany. So they're not really sure about the actual meaning of rune. Most people say it refers to runa, meaning secret, but that's not necessarily what it does actually mean. So it's quite handy to be sort of clouded in mystery in itself. Now they believe it was founded on earlier alphabets from Etruscan or North Italic. I'll show you some of those systems in a minute, but there's ongoing archaeology. And ongoing archaeology, particularly in the recent years, have discovered older carvings with runes on. So these older carvings constantly take the date of the runes back before the Common Era. It was originally thought that the first runes appeared in the Common Era, but now they've been taken back to sort of prior to the Common Era. So we're not really sure when they were first used as an actual system of alphabetization system. You can't see this. It's quite handy, but you can't see it. This is just a column of the different alphabets that they think the runes derived from. So we've got some Etruscan, some North Italic, and some Celtic as well. Some of the letters look to be sort of very early Proto-Celtic letters as well. So they sort of split into Greek alphabet, into runes, and sort of the latter-day Roman alphabet that we use in our written language. This is the earliest Etruscan alphabet from 700 BCE. I don't know if anyone can see it. But some of the letters, as you can probably see, are referred to Roman alphabet. Some of them are very, very similar. If you look across, we've got some that are very similar to the Anglo-Saxon runes, and some of the runes, like down on the bottom row, the fourth one along, that's very similar to the Lagus rune, which is the rune for emotion. So this, the Etruscan alphabet from 700 BCE seems to have a mixture, and somewhere along the way those runes were extracted. But we have found earlier, archaeology, not me, has found earlier carvings in stone and in caves which seem to link the runes to some kind of Proto-Germanic or Indo-European system of language as well. This is the old Italic script, and again, I'm sorry you can't see it. Italic script would be common to across the Italian and Mediterranean countries. Again, some very similar lettering in there, but there's no point in me talking about it. So we've got various theories of the origins of the runes. There's the Latin theory, there's the Greek theory, the North Italic, and then it's like an integrated theory that some of these runes just were indigenous and they just developed as part of an overall alphabetical system. But what we know is that from almost the very beginning, they weren't just used for writing. They were used, so they were seen, each rune was seen to have some kind of magical power imbued and embedded within each individual figure that people then took and used for magic and for divination. So this is known as the Elder Fusark, which is the one that you've got there. So this is the most common of the rune systems used, that magical practitioners today tend to use. It's broken down into 3 columns. If you see on the right, it's the first 8, the second 8, and the third 8. Now an 8 is a division. It's broken into 3 rows, and it's a bit like the tarot, that each of those divisions are seen as a particular journey along a path. So you've got the start of the journey, and it takes you down into, the second 8 takes you into sort of like the deeper, more challenging part of your journey, and then you come out into a new life, into something new to work with. So it's actually broken down into 3 divisions, and it's always seen as in those 3 divisions. I'll come back to the Elder Futhark in a bit. This is the Anglo-Saxon Futhark. This one, as you can see, has got extra runes on. A lot of Anglo-Saxon practitioners tend to use this more. And it has, because there are more runes, there are also more meanings of them. Now we know the meaning, I'm going to return this, but we know the meanings of the runes because we have documentation of rune poems. So we've not only got the translation of what the letters actually mean, but we know the meanings of them. So it's not just sort of contemporary practitioners have said this rune means this rune means that. It comes from sort of the early medieval period, documents that have been found saying this is what this rune means. I'll show you the examples of that in a minute. You probably won't be able to read them, but I'll show you them. Yeah, so you can see this is 33 runes in the Anglo-Saxons. You need to learn extra ones if you want to work with those. Other runic alphabets, there's the Younger Futhark, the Danish Futhark, the Orkney rune, and Manx Yeren. Now, they're called that because they're particular to the places where they were found. So we've got the Younger Futhark with the Northumbrian runes because there are only 16 runes found in Northumbria, so those 16 runes are particular to Northumbria, so that's seen as the Northumbrian rune system. And the Danish Futhark has found certain runes that we have not been found in the British Isles or other Germanic countries that have been found in Denmark. The same with Orkney. Orkney have a particular rune row. If anyone's been there, they've probably seen it. And Manx Yeren, which is obviously the Isle of Man. And the rune rows that have been found there, some slightly different to the ones that are in the more conventional Elder Futhark that you've got in your hands there. I'm not going to show you this. This just gives an example of, this is a quote from Tacitus, who wrote Germania, who was sort of like a very early anthropological and ethnographic study of the Germanic and the British people. And he talked about the priest of the community, and if not the head of the family, would carve runes onto sticks and throw them onto a piece of cloth and read the runes for that family. So we have, I said, after invoking the gods, with eyes raised to heavens, picks up 3 pieces, one at a time, and interprets them in accordance with the signs previously marked on them. Now this was, the words was written in about 97 Common Era, so 97 AD. So he's recording something that he's actually observed of a cloth being laid out and the runes being cast. And if the priest isn't available, it's always the head of the family. And it wasn't necessarily the man of the family. If the man was away at war, it was the woman who was the head of the family who would cast the runes. So it wasn't something that was particularly special just to the priests, or just something that had to be an encounter between the priest and the god. It was something that heads of families could also work with. So it's something that was for the common people as well. So we know that they picked up 3 runes and that they cast them. So that's quite a conventional way of casting runes. Anybody who works with runes, it's something that you could do yourself. Pick up the runes. You can cut these out if you want to. Start casting your bits of paper. I'm just going to show you some stones. So there's some amazingly fantastic carved rune stones from Norway, Denmark, and Sweden in particular. Some of them, they were painted, they were highly coloured, they used gesto. This one is a serpent, and on the serpent you can see the runes being carved. So you can see carved on the serpent we have the rune symbols. And serpents and snakes are really important, as you probably know, within Norse mythology, because we have the world serpent and we also have the serpent at the very bottom of the worlds. And so they incorporate and encompass all the runes and all the magic of the runes, which they then send back out into the 9 worlds. So we've got the runes. Some of the runes are just really bog standard on these. It's like, so and so made this. This belongs to me. I've been given this by my dad, you know. And then others then just invoke the runes. A lot of the interesting. The majority of rune stones that have been carved that we find in, majority of these I'm going to show you are from Sweden, but a lot of the runes that are carved, they give praise to Thor. Now it's quite interesting because the rune mythology, which I'll talk about a bit later, is that Odin got the runes. He hung upside down on the tree to get the knowledge of the runes and the inspiration of the runes, and he was given given the knowledge of the runes. Yet the majority of the carved rune stones are dedicated to Thor and give blessings to Thor. So it's almost as if Thor was the god of the common people, so we want to invoke Thor into our runes, whereas Odin is seen as a more sort of distant god and god of all the tribes. And apart from on these rune stones, we haven't got anything within the literature, anything within the Eddas or any of the other literature that links Thor to the runes, apart from these carved rune stones. So there must have been some belief, some magical belief there with Thor. This is another one here. These are all from Sweden. This one again is carved with the serpent. This is the taller one. This one, some of these are called Bekon. Bekon are monuments belonging to families, and this is a Bekon monument. This belonged to a family, was carved by a family for members of that family to give. To get praise from the gods, really, to get gifts from the gods. They would give them in offering to the gods. And it's quite interesting that quite a few of them in Norway and Sweden are tall, like standing stones. And it would have been interesting to know what the Anglo-Saxons and the Viking incomers thought of the standing stones that were here, because that was something that wasn't particular to their country. So they wouldn't have found many standing stones or stone circles, and when they would have come here, they would have seen this, and it's something very similar to the single stones that they would have been carving in Sweden and Denmark, and some in Norway as well. Some of them have interesting symbols on. This is it's like a Triskelly symbol. Triskel was very commonly used in carving with runes. A lot of people think the Triskelly is a Celtic symbol. It's actually not. It comes from the Anglo-Saxon world. There was a big sort of... You'll probably find, if anyone's heard of Latin, the Latin art movement, that was it started in Switzerland and Austria, and we've got a combination of like Celtic and Anglo-Saxon and Germanic symbols, and a lot of those symbols that we now attribute as Celtic knotwork are not Celtic knotwork, they're actually Anglo-Saxon or Germanic knotwork. Again, around the side, I can see it here, it's just got someone's name, and this one sort of says gifts to Thor. This one's from the Åland Island in Sweden, where quite a few of the stones on Åland Island are dedicated to Thor, or giving thanks to Thor, or blessings. They're often used with the word vitja, and vitja is like is a hailing blessing to Thor. So you'll find Thor and vitja together on a lot of these stones. And again, we don't find that in many other places. So these were very powerful invocations, because it's kind of a powerful hailing to Thor. Is this vitja, this greeting to him? There's another one from the Åland Island, which has you might be able to see it's got a cross on the top, but some of these have crosses on and have Thor's hammers. So we're going through the period of translation of movement. From transition from being heathen into Christianity, but people always hedge their bets and held on to both. There's another one. These are beautiful stones. It's a shame you can't see them. It's another one that's got Thor dedication on. This one has got interlocking and interlacing animals that they sort of like link together. Another common trait in these Viking rune stones, where we have these animal shapes, and it's possible that these animals were the fylgja of this particular family. If anybody doesn't know what a fylgja is an animal spirit, like your power animal, but they're your animal spirits that are connected to you throughout your life. You have one that's part of you, and then other animal spirits that come and work with you. And it's possible that each of these rune stones that were carved, we don't know why they chose to have boar, or why they chose. Well, sometimes they chose to have boar because it's a dedication to Frey, but in others we don't really know. It could be that it's their dedication to their fylgja, their animal spirits. There's another one that's from Åland Island, another one with the dedication to Thor on. I'm going to work through these. And this is from Scania County in Sweden, and this one has both the dragon, which we think is Nidhogg, the serpent, and some runes carved in the middle as well. So on this, you've got the very bog standard. This stone was made by so and so, but also this one has quite a powerful spell working invocation on as well. So at the time, people were working with the two, which is quite interesting. You know, you don't normally get headstones that just say bog standard things and then incorporated some kind of powerful spell. It's possible that some of them, when they were carved, the spell work was incorporated in order for the Christians not to sort of figure out what they were doing. If it was in the transition to Christianity, they just said, "Oh, this is somebody's headstone. This is my old granddad's headstone. I'm just saying bye, granddad." And yet within that, we've actually got something that says, "Sod off, you Christians." We don't know. Some kind of magical work against the Christians. This one is one of the few that's got a Thor's hammer on. This is in Sweden. You can't see, but it's got a Thor's hammer on. It's a nicely coloured one. Some of them have got beautiful colours. They're reds and yellows. They're preserved so well in Sweden. Here, the ones that we've got in these aisles also would have been coloured, but because of the weathering and the fact they've not been looked after, particularly the ones in Scotland, you can barely read them. And the colours have almost all gone now. I'll just work through these. Like, these are some Norway. This is the runes were not only carved on stones; they were also carved on pieces of jewellery. This is the Nordendur fibula, which dates between about 550 and 600 Common Era. Now that's the time when the Anglo-Saxons would just have started coming to these isles, so they would just have started working their way through the Angles in the south and then the Saxons. But this is a beautifully carved piece of brooch, and I was on an archaeological dig about 2-3 years ago, in Cambridgeshire, and they dug up very similar brooches to this, with similar symbols, not with runes on, but with other symbols on, which could point to the fact that there are some particular symbols that are particular to a locality, because these in Cambridgeshire, they hadn't seen these symbols before. So it could be the possibility that runes developed in different ways in different parts of the world. This bears the name, it's written down, it's actually written upside down. This bears the name of Woden, or Odin, and also Thunor. So in the Anglo-Saxon word, Thor was known as Thunor. Some people would debate that they're two separate gods. But Thunor and Thor have the same attributes, as does Woden, who became Wotan and Wodan and Odin in Scandinavia. This would have belonged to a woman of probably quite high renown, but quite wealthy. Sorry, not very good. Quite a wealthy woman. But the runes are incorporated within all this sort of the silver work. It's beautiful. They're called fibula. These they're known as there are two of them that were found. That's the runic inscription. Now it's really interesting, this runic inscription that was found, because this is on the second brooch. Sorry, I should have said on the second brooch. What's written here are three names on this brooch, and we've got to start off with there. Anyone who can read it, we have got Odin, Woden in the middle, and we've got Thunor, or Wiggy Thunor at the end. But at the beginning, we've got the name of Logathor. Now, it's possible that Logathor is a god that hasn't been encountered by the majority of heathens yet, because it's an unknown name. So it's possible that it's surmised that Logathor is a god that seems to be forgotten about, or a lesser known god that didn't travel as well as Thor and Odin did. But it's quite interesting that whoever made this brooch saw Logathor as important as Woden and as important as Thunor. So Woden's, where the dots are, this is when you do runic writing, where the dots are, that's the end of your word. So it goes on to the next word. So the first says Logathor, then in the middle it's Woden, and at the end it's Wiggy Thunor. So it's dedication to Thor. That's the Nordendorf fibula, the other one. It's possible that the runic inscriptions were added later because they were scratched on. But so if they would have been, they'd have been scratched on in order to imbue that particular piece of jewellery with something magical. Right, this is really, you can't see any of this. We know, as I said earlier, we know the meanings of each individual rune because we have in existence the rune poems. Now this is the Anglo-Saxon rune poem, which was usually in Old English. And what happens, each verse, this is the translation from the Old English to Modern English, but each verse gives you the meaning of that particular rune. So we know what the ancestors would have used the different runes for, what they meant. So the first one, so it talks about Fehu, which on your list is the first one. And Fehu is links to cattle and links to abundance. So we know that they would have used Fehu in terms of abundance and to call upon the gods to bring them abundance. And then the second one, the Uruz. Uruz is there, we know again, it connects to cattle to connect to the earth. It's an earth one. So we know that would have been an earthy one, a grounding one. So each of these you can find them online. There's the Old English rune poem, there's the Icelandic rune poem, which I can read here, you might not be able to. So it says like Fehu, wealth is the source of discord amongst kingsmen and fire of the sea and path of the serpent. And then it goes down, the third one, Ansus, which is your fourth one. Ansus, it says, God is the age Gauta and Prince of Asgard and Lord of Valhalla. So we know from the Icelandic rune poem and the Norwegian rune poem that Ansus, the fourth one along on your thing, was the rune that was Odin's rune. It was the rune of inspiration, the rune that they would chant, they would write, they would call on for inspiration, because it's the rune that connects you directly to the god Odin or Woden or Wotan, depending where you're from. And so it goes on. So we don't need contemporary authors or contemporary readers to actually apply those meanings to them, because we actually have them in existence. So there's the Old English rune poem, the Icelandic rune poem. This is the Norwegian rune poem in its original state. This was discovered from a 13th century manuscript in the 17th century. This is one of the older ones that was found, and this is probably the oldest. This is it's called the Abecedarium Nordmanicum, and it's a short poem, and the short poem will then gives you some of the meaning of some of the runes. As you can see, they're written within that. But it was found in Germany, but it was probably Danish originally, Danish in origin. How am I doing? Shall I just carry on? We talked for half an hour. Okay. Right, some mythology. Some mythology that you probably know. I said before that the mythology of the runes, it was that Odin hung on a windswept tree for 9 days and 9 nights, struck by a spear and given to Odin, myself given to myself. That's in the Havamal. It's a quotation from the Havamal. Odin hung. He didn't hang from Yggdrasil, as some artists will depict. He actually hung from a windswept tree. We don't think it was Yggdrasil, the world tree. But he hung from a tree. We see him here upside down. 9 days and 9 nights. He was stuck at the side with a spear, which is quite interesting because that has correlations with the Christian mythology of Jesus being stuck in the side with a spear. So we have quite a few sacrificial gods, Odin being one and Jesus being another, with being stuck in the side of the spear. And you probably see the similarity to the hanged man in the tarot as well. The tarot seems to depict a man hanging upside down from a tree. There he is again, Odin the High One, just with his spear in his hand, waiting to stab himself. And then he received the wisdom of the runes. Now, I haven't got time to go through all the runes, so I haven't got time to talk about all the runes today, but I'm just going to go through some of them, because what we're going to do at the end of this, before about 15 minutes will get thrown off, we're going to do a Galda. All of you here, I want you to be going to do a Galda, and I thought we could all do a Galda for abundance. A Galda is a chant, so I'm going to get you all to do a rune chant, and hopefully you'll take that away with you and get some abundance. So I'll just go through some of the runes that you might want to use yourself. You can find out the rest. At the back of the sheet I've given you, it's got some little meanings of them. I have more extended meanings of the runes. I was thinking about feedback. I have more extended meanings of the runes that I've put together for workshops. If anybody wants them, you can just email me and I'm happy to send that to them. But this seems to be the rune that most people, when they're working magically, work with, or when they're doing divination, will want to work with. It's Fehu, and it's the rune of abundance. It's seen as the rune that brings money to you and wealth in many ways. Runes, don't forget, can also be used as forms of healing. It's like runic Reiki. You can draw the runes around, draw the runes on your back. So Fehu is also a rune that to lift from depression, because it's a positive, it's a lifting rune. So if you suffer from depression or you work with some healing, try drawing and chanting the Fehu rune over that person or over yourself, and see how it works, because the runes work with what's known as an ond stream. Ond is like a divine stream of energy, divine power, which comes from the earth and comes through you, and then comes out through you back into the universe. So that ond stream is constantly flowing, and you can tap into that, work with that ond stream, send that out as you're working with the runes. It took me a long time, I have to say, to get to grips with the runes. I don't know about you lot, but one of the first things I did when I came into this was I bought a rune set. I thought, hey, I've got a rune set. I've got crystals, I've got a rune set, this is really cool. And then I realised I hadn't a clue, I didn't know how to work with them, I couldn't read them, I didn't understand any of them. I put them away for a long time. And then eventually, when I started working with Runic John, we worked with each rune for weeks, just one rune. So if you really want to connect to the runes, I've got some of my fellow Hearth here today as well, so they'll say what we had to do with working with the runes. If you really want to work with them, you need to take one at a time and work with that rune, and remember that rune and tune into that rune, and then go on to the next one, and then eventually they'll stick. It's like like a language, like learning a new language. If you're learning Russian or something, those runes will stick in your mind. But they're not just for divination. They take you on a lot more different levels. They take you on far deeper levels than anything that you will ever have worked with, I assure you. So Fehu is a positive rune. Uruz is the rune that you, when you've been working, magically it will ground you into the earth, ground you to the universe. It's also a protection rune. It can give you stamina if your stamina's low. I'm just going through some of it. Thurizaz. See, you can work magic with the runes as well as receive them. So if you were giving yourself a reading and you got Thurizaz might refer to you that you need some form of protection against someone. If you can see Thurizaz, it's like a thorn. So it's like, but you can also use that as a way of pushing that. So you can visualize that rune, send that rune to someone. If you want to send a thorn to someone, or if you want to send protection around yourself, then Thurizaz would be the rune that you would draw and see and envision around yourself. And if you get it in a reading, then you just need to be a bit careful about people around you. It brings truth to light. If you need to see truth in a particular situation. It can also stop gossip, which is quite handy within this community sometimes. Answers, I've said before, I put the two here. One is the Anglo-Saxon version of answers. The other is answers will bring you wisdom and inspiration from Odin. If you want direct knowledge, wisdom, spiritual inspiration, then you would use this within any spell working or if you get it within a reading, then it's something to tell you that you are receiving, or you need to listen to get your knowledge from the gods. Rado is a journeying rune. It looks like an oar that's just about to start walking. It's one of the two horse runes, but Rado takes you on a spiritual journey. But because it's got its leg out, this is the way I remember them. It's got its leg out. It's going to give you a kick up the arse. It'll kick you into the next level of your spiritual enlightenment, whether you like it or not. Or if you can actually work with it to do that. And so we go on. This is Kenaz. Kenaz is the light. If you feel that you need some light at the end of a tunnel, it's a torch. Kenaz actually means torch. Now, if you were working with these, you would, I've got 5 minutes good. You would chant them, you would draw them, you would visualize them, you can draw them onto other people, you can put them onto paper, you can put them onto card. You can do it any way you want. Runes are always there. Because if we go to something like, I'll come back to that. If you go to something like Tiwaz, which looks like an arrow, that was once used and documents by the Vikings when they were going into legal situations and they wanted success. They would draw, because Tiwaz calls on the god Tyr, the god of justice. And so they would use that to bring justice into their legal situations or their court cases. Gabo's a gift. Gabo's a gift, and I know I've been told 5. That's 2 5s. Gabo brings gifts to you. Every time you put 3 crosses at the end of your text when you send it to someone, you're sending 3 gifts. You're sending 3 Gabos. That X doesn't come from kisses. The X actually comes from Viking manuscripts where we have the X written at the end of manuscripts. So it's sending love. So you're following a long tradition of madness. I'm just going to say Wunyo. I said Wunyo brings joy, but joy can also bring madness. So don't use Wunyo wisely, or it'll just drive you bonkers. But I think we all must be anyway. And I just wanted to draw your attention to this one, and then we're going to do the rune chant. The reason I'm drawing this one, it's a story I've told before. I have a friend who is a writer in New Zealand. She's called Kimberly Freeman, and she's like as famous as J.K. Rowling. And she writes fantasy. And I met her at a conference, and she was at the conference, and she had this tattooed on her arm. And I asked her, what have you got the Yera rune tattooed on your arm for? And she said, oh, I didn't know what it was. She said, I had a dream about this. And I woke up and I drew it, and I had it tattooed. I said, well, it's Yera. Yera is the rune for harvest. Rune for for harvesting of all your projects, bringing it into fruition. She said it's really strange, she said, because within 2 weeks of me having this tattooed on my arm, I got a 4-book deal. So, and she didn't even know what it was for. So I'm going to go through to the end because I've only got a few minutes left. Bind runes. These are some traditional bind runes. You can combine runes together in any form to make a more stronger magical binding. So you can combine Fehu, Ansus, Sowelo together and draw it however you want to draw it to, and then sing that rune and chant it to, again, imbue it with power if you want to create some bind runes. These are some that are on bits of jewellery. And AD's here, you do bind runes, don't you, AD? So anybody who wants any powerful runes or bind runes, go speak to AD. And now on to Galder. We're going to finish with Galder. Galder is the magical incantation. There's Galder through chanting. There's also what's known as Stada Galder, where you stand the runes. I'm not going to get everybody standing up and doing this because I'm sure people will think they're crackers already. So we're just going to do, at the end, for ourselves, we're just going to do a rune for abundance. And I just thought we'd combine these three. We've got Fehu that I've spoken about. We've got Yera, which is the harvest one. And we've got Sowelo. Sowelo is success and the sun. It's to do with sun. Often it's success around about the summer solstice. So, I'm going to chant those 3 runes. We're going to do. I'll show you how to do it, and then we're going to just do it 9 times. Okay? Please all join in. I'm not going to make you stand up, so I just want you all to join in and sing. And while you're doing it, just think of what the abundance is that you'd like to bring into your life. So have a think about it first. And what we're going to do, we're going to go. Fehu Yera Sowelo. Everybody ever go first? Fehu Yera Sowelo. Right, we're going to do that 9 times. And think about it seriously. Think about what you want to bring into your life. Okay? 1, 2, 3. Fehu Yera Sowelo. 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 Thank you.
I was sent in an email recently from a listener to the show, an artist named Sean Ryan, who runs an online art store called Art from the Shaman's Horse. And this story was written by his partner Lee, and I'd like to read it to you. There was a time when hedgehogs were believed to be witches in disguise. That may or may not be true, but it certainly shows Mrs. Tiggywinkle in a whole new light if it is true. But that they are truly enchanting magical creatures, nobody can deny. Living in a village in rural Wiltshire, Sean and I are used to hedgehogs snuffling around our garden after dusk. I've been witness to many a noisy standoff when 2 males meet, an almost comical game of huffing and puffing in shoes, reminiscent of 2 beady-eyed boxers squaring off a weigh-in. And once, while I was gazing at a small Beltane fire, I looked behind me to see 2 curious, prickly visitors, seemingly as transfixed by the ceremonial flames as I was. Being lucky enough to have these most characterful of creatures in my life, I've become accustomed to the annual hedgehog life cycle, the tentative emergence from hibernation in March to April, the noisy mating season. Hogs are notoriously vocal when it comes to lovemaking. The appearance of late summer juveniles trundling across the lawn in search of slugs, worms and the hedgehog food I put out for them, and finally their customary disappearance come late autumn when they root out toasty leaf-covered hideaways in which to hibernate. So it came as a shock when Sean spotted a small hoglet. Yes, that is what baby hedgehogs are called, chewing on a fat ball that had fallen from our bird table on an early January morning just after New Year. Having read several books about hedgehogs' behaviour over the years, I knew this was not a good sign. A hedgehog who ventures out in midwinter in broad daylight is a hedgehog in trouble. These increasingly endangered animals need to reach a certain weight, ideally around 600 grams, in order to survive hibernation. And clearly this hoglet, small and obviously starving, had not. Left to fend for itself, there was little chance it would survive, so we quickly rushed outside, scooped it up in a towel. Hedgehogs aren't as prickly as you might think, but they're still pretty tricky to handle. Popped it in a box and took it to the Wiltshire Wildlife Hospital, a local charity who look after sick, injured and orphaned wildlife in our local area. On arrival, the staff quickly ascertained our foundling's sex. It turned out our little hoglet was a girl, weighed her, and she was barely 300 grams, and logged her in as Hedgehog 3. Presumably she was the third arrival of the new year, and if you'd seen how many hedgehogs were there already, you'd appreciate why numbers are the best way to identify new arrivals. To us, though, she was Susan, the name we'd given her on the way to the hospital. Hey, what can I say? She just looked like a Susan. After a tour of the hospital and a voluntary donation of £25, an amount the staff assured us would buy a lot of food for the patients, we left our newfound friend in the care of this amazing charity in the hope that come the spring, when she was fit enough, we could return to collect her and return her to our garden so she could live out the rest of her life snuffling through the undergrowth and munching on slugs and wildlife. Perhaps, we thought, she might even witness a Beltane bonfire herself one day. But sadly, that was not to be. On calling to see how she was doing late in February, we discovered that Susan had passed away the day after we brought her to the wildlife hospital. She had simply been too weak, too malnourished and too small to survive, even with our best intentions and the staff's dedicated care. Whilst much of Sean's artwork is inspired by the animals he encounters when journeying with the drum, occasionally it is inspired by transformative real-life encounters. Hedgehog and the Moon was painted as a celebration of the beauty of one such encounter on a cold morning in January, and in appreciation of the work that organisations like the Wiltshire Wildlife Hospital do, 100% of the profits from the sales of this print will be split between the Wildlife Hospital and the British Hedgehog Preservation Society, who provide advice about hedgehog welfare and fund research to find the best ways to assist hedgehog survival. Back in the 1950s, an estimated 30 million hedgehogs trundled their way across nighttime Britain. Today, it's thought that there is less than 1 million of these beautiful reclusive creatures left. Sadly, no amount of kindness was able to save little Susan, but in purchasing this print, your kindness could help hundreds of truly magical hedgehogs just like her. Well, there we go, my friends. Not a truly happy tale, but that print will help save hedgehogs' lives. So there will be a link to that page in the show notes if you want to pop over there and buy one of these limited edition prints.
Kind friends and companions, come join me in rhyme. Come lift up your voices in chorus with mine. Let us drink and be merry, all grief to refrain. For we may or might never all meet here again. So here's a health to the company, and one to my lass. Let us drink and be merry, all out of one glass. Let us drink and be merry, all grief to refrain. For we may or might never all meet here again. Now here's a toast to the dear lass that I love so well. Her style and her beauty, sure none can excel. There's a smile on her countenance as she sits on my knee. There is no one in this world as happy as me. So here's a health to the company, and one to my lass. Let us drink and be merry, all out of one glass. Let us drink and be merry, all grief to refrain. For we may or might never all meet here again. Our ship lies in the harbor, she's ready to dock. I wish her safe landing without any shock. And if ever we should meet again by land or by sea, I will always remember your kindness to me. So here's a health to the company, and one to my lass. Let us drink and be merry, all out of one glass. Let us drink and be merry, all grief to refrain. For we may or might never all meet here again.
That was The Captain's Beard with Health to the Company, and don't forget you can find links to all of the artists featured in DruidCast in the show notes. Well, my friends, this music means we are approaching the end of the show, but before I go, let's have the results of last month's competition. The prize was a copy of the book A History of Druidry in Australia, edited by Sandra Greenall and Elkie White, and the question I asked was: while the Northern Hemisphere is celebrating the summer solstice, which festival are Druids in the Southern Hemisphere celebrating? Well, the answer is the winter solstice, and the first name drawn from the hat and winner of that great book is Brigitara Artemisis from California. Congratulations, that book will be with you as soon as the postal service allows right now. The prize this month is a print of the Hedgehog and the Moon painting I spoke about earlier by the artist Sean Ryan. It is a beautiful limited edition print, and I wish I could show it to you through the conduit of your phone or however you're listening to this. But if you would like the chance to win it, all you need to do is answer this question. What name did Sean and Lee give to the young hedgehog in the story I told earlier? What name did Sean and Lee give to the young hedgehog in the story I told earlier? Email your answer along with your full postal address to podcast@druidry.org, and one of you will win that gorgeous print. And in the meantime, do click on that link in the show notes and buy a copy too, even for a friend. Help them out. So my friends, that is a show. I will see you next month for episode 162. But until then, I wish you all peace and blessed be. Goodbye.